What is going on? Is this thing gonna start? Uh-oh. Maybe it doesn't start till 3 minutes. It says I'm streaming. I don't see it online. Oh, just had to refresh my screen. So just starting a little early as people filter in or not. Because I want to get down to business at 8 o'clock Central Time, which is the time we're recording this. Who's I see you in the chat room. Good to see you. Message retracted. It's been retracted. Sees us. All right. All right. For those of you that aren't familiar with me, my name is Sean. I used to host a RPG podcast for a little while called Gaming and BS. I stream every Saturday here at 8 a.m. Central Time. I'm doing it this evening to kick off session 0 of the Beaslandia West Marches game, or campaign, if you will. Mr. White, I see you. Good morning. Good morning. Ha, what a habit. Good evening as of this recording. So we are joined by folks in the chat, which will be accessible after this is recorded and wrapped up. I hope to answer many questions that may be out there, but I think a lot of this will come to fruition as we play the game. Tad, good morning. Did it again. Good evening. At least. Just wait for everybody to filter on in. Angela, I know I'm too used to doing the morning show. It's so ingrained in my brain. As a matter of fact, I will go to bed tonight and not wake up tomorrow until like 10 o'clock. My employer will wonder where I am. I'll say it's Sunday. What are you talking about? Roger, good to see you. So old we have to tell this story in sepia tone. It should be black and white. Keeping with the tone. Which kind of, like I messed up because the banner I did black and white and then I just changed the whole screen. So I really didn't have to do the banner at all. I'm sticking with the theme through and through. Through and through. Like if you looked at my basement right now where I'm filming this, it's all black and white. Just for this evening though. Thanks everybody for joining. I don't know how many to expect. I didn't see how many were interested on the Discord server. And it's going to ebb and flow, right? Some people can make it, some people can't. Some people are gaming. I'd much rather them actually game than stop here this evening because they can get it later. Kevin, good to see you. Must be the off week. The off week for Kev's game. I mean, you know, it's funny. My basement is monochrome. It's when I redid it, it's painted it gray, black, and white with silver brushed, I guess, fake nickel looking doorknobs and trim. It was all the books and everything else that and all the accoutrement that was a problem painting black, white, silver, gray. I would be in my game, but it got canceled. One player accepted the invite and then scheduled something else. Ouch. Well, then I planned it right for you, Kev. Hope everything's going well in that group. I was in Kevin's Forbidden Lands group, a couple others. It's 8:01 Central Time. I suppose we can get this off and running. I think people can catch up. I think I have DVR mode on. If they come in, they can start at the beginning and fast forward if they need to. But thank you. Well, I'll start off. So thank you for everybody for joining. This will be unlisted on YouTube. I can list it, I guess, but I don't know if I want to list it publicly. But somebody that has the link and wants to provide it to somebody, they'll be able to access it. It's not private, but you are an elite bunch that have the link. So what we're going to do tonight is we're going to do a session 0, and then I'll open it up to questions and answers. I hope that I can answer many of the questions, some that are probably still a little there's no clarity, so hopefully I'll provide some context around what's going to happen. If you are here for the board game evening, that's down the hall and to the left. Of course you're special, Angela. This is so. I don't want to get to the whole. Oh, you know what? Yes, I think I can do this. All right. And I'm on the wrong slide already. Isn't that awesome? I'm already wrong. Here we go. And I have to find this right here. Okay. My notes, if you will. So tonight, session 0 of the Beaslandia West Marches campaign. If you have not heard of this before, well, you will tonight. Some of you have already started doing things. Some of you've got characters generated. Some of you've signed up for and scheduled to play in a few offered sessions already. Awesome. Thank you. I think some of you will know how to do that and understand the workflow. This will be the first time you know anything about it. So it's not going to be a step-by-step, click this, click that type of approach, but we'll get through it together. All right. Shambot, good to see you. All right. Let's get into this thing. So West Marches, if you're not familiar with the campaign concept or style of play, it's done by Ben Robbins. There's tons of videos on YouTube. I'll probably put one out at some point once I get my head together and put something, get everything together and edit it and put out there. I actually interviewed Ben. Fantastic. I also talked to Jason Hobbs, who has the Mighty All Kalmata game that he has run for years. It's drop in, drop out. Did a little bit of research, but there's tons of blogs out there, tons of different, even games and settings that kind of facilitate West Marches. But in case anybody is watching this and wondering what West Marches campaign style play is, it's a tabletop role-playing game. It can be very much mechanics agnostic, although there are some role-playing games out there that are built to facilitate what a West Marches type campaign is. Now, Ben gets a lot of accolades and credits, accredited to coming up with this concept of the West Marches, but at its fundamental core, it really goes back to when many of us had grown up. When it might have been the 80s, 90s, heck, it could even be 2 years ago. It's when you have a core group of players and you have a game master and the core players want to play. And rather than the game master coordinating a bunch of the logistics, which is done quite a bit nowadays, but there's still games out there that say, hey, we want to play D&D. So we got to go get the game master, and then we want to tell the game master what we want to play, like where we want to go, what module to run for us. And then we say we're available next week, and then the game master says, yeah, I am too. Let's play. Sounds good. And the game master already knows where the group wants to go. It's more exploration in nature. Some can be hex crawls, although some may not have hex crawling as part of the West Marches, the campaign style. But essentially, they get together and then they play the game. With that, it's not linear necessarily. It's episodic, but not necessarily linear. Okay, which means if you're used to getting one of the big published campaign books, it's not that. It's very could be point crawl is sometimes referred to, where there's a landmark or something out in the distance away from town that the party wants to go and explore. They go there, they explore it, and then they come back to town. The next time they want to play, they can explore the same site, or they may go somewhere else because they saw something else in the distance. Maybe there's rumors of gold and treasure and magic over in the hills. Let's go and explore the hills. They go do that and come back. So every session is going to be different. It's also kind of a living type of game, which means that if you go to one area and another group had been there previously, there would be remnants of them having been there. Maybe they killed all the ghoulies in the first level. The second group that goes there should probably find some of the ghoulies that are there. So there's some core principles with West Marches style play and how it's kind of some of the core things about West Marches. It's supposed to facilitate large player groups. You could have more than 6, 10, 20, 30 players. And how you facilitate it isn't by running one session for 30 players. You're having that as a player base. And those players opt to play when they can around their schedules. So they can come in, play one session, not play for a month, come back, play again. And the game master just runs it very neutral and runs wherever they want to go. That group of players wants to go at any given time. Another thing is that there is kind of a home base, and the home base is typically a town or a village. If you're running an urban setting, which could be done, your home base may be an inn, and nothing happens at the end. It's very boring. But in this case, Beaslandia is going to be taking part in the village. Okay. The village, nothing happens. It's boring. You've lived there for years. And I'll go into a little bit more details about Beaslandia in just a minute. But essentially, the drive is to go out and explore and go and find interesting things. See ya, Joe? That is one thing. So many players, and also going out and exploration. Now, with many of the things I'm about to talk about, mileage may vary. Some people may tweak this, tweak that, and call it West Marches, which I suppose is fine. The gaming police will not come and arrest you if you decide to, have a West Marches game with your core group of friends of 5, and it doesn't have the 10 or 20. Because it doesn't have the 10 or 20 or past the normal number of players for a group, doesn't mean it's not necessarily West Marches. What else can I say? I mentioned this, the large player group. It's also very much player driven. So that stems from, hey, Sean, we want to go over to the hills that you mentioned or the catacombs that you have posted. We have a group of 4. I've got my players right here behind me. We're ready to go Saturday at 8 o'clock in the morning. And I say, great. And I have a few days. I prep that, and then I run it for that group. Sometimes it's the game master having to herd all the cats and making sure everybody's there. But with the players, it's very much player driven. They determine, relatively speaking, when to play, even though I have to provide my availability because we're going to be playing this virtually with people all over the country and potentially the world. But I will provide as many slots of availability as I can manage, And then the players are they're going to muster, they're going to get their group together, they're going to determine where they want to go, and they're going to want to tell me when to play. They want to play, and then we're going to go and make it happen. I'm trying to think if I missed any major points of West Marches play. I'm trying to think. I'll ask you, did I miss any? Does anybody know? All right. Mum's the word. Now, I mentioned that West Marches is kind of a campaign style play, which means that it's not necessarily a game. Although, like, I think there's Forged in the Marches or something along those lines, like a Forged in the Dark West Marches style game. And so it helps facilitate some of the exploration pieces, the journey out, the journey back from the village. In this particular campaign, we're going to be using Shadowdark. So Shadowdark RPG by Arcane Library, Kelsey Dion. If you're not familiar with it, go check it out online. I'll have links down below where everybody can visit. Some of you have already got this book. And the reason I decided to go with Shadowdark specifically is because it is a modern take on OSR or old school with modern design. So it has advantage and disadvantage. It's D20 based. It has standard strength, intelligence, wisdom, dexterity, constitution, charisma, armor class, hit points, weapons, do damage, and, hit points are taken off. And most of the checks that are done in Shadowdark are attribute checks. Okay, so you're usually got a modifier with whatever attribute, and then you have a DC, so difficulty class. For many people that have played 3.0 and up to 5, a lot of these terms and things of that nature are going to be very familiar. So a lot of us have run these games. A lot of us have played these games. Whether it is our favorite game at the moment or not may vary, but it's a common denominator. It's something that we're all going to be relatively familiar with. Now, having said that, there are some tricks. There are some rules within Shadowdark that may not be the same as in 3.5 or 5th edition, but it's essentially a fantasy setting. It's always got kind of a dark, going into the Underdark and exploring dungeons and things underground, under the mountain, under the hills, what lies in the crypts. And there is. Even torches, when you light a torch, it stays lit in real time for an hour. It's really, if the torch goes out, what happens? Okay. So a lot of darkness theme, right? Black, silver, gray. You'll see that aesthetic through Shadowdark's some of the third-party publishers, as well as some of the things that Arcane Library puts out. And we're going to be following that theme. But it is also boiled down to, I don't know if I would go all in on rulings over rules, but there is a component of that written right in the game that says really what it comes down to it is how do you want this to kind of flow in your game, have a discussion, and then kind of roll with it. Don't get caught up in the rules verbatim. And it's relatively rules light. Okay. So do you need to know the rules of Shadowdark to participate in this campaign? And the answer is no, you do not. We'll all be learning it together, and we'll go through cats in just a second. So Shadowdark's the game of choice. We'll talk a little bit about that in just a second. So moving on. Here it is. Player-driven, large player base, less social and serial, more explore and episodic. So kind of I see what's going on here. I'm showing my notes. Let me move that. That's a little bit about the West Marches. Probably got a little ahead of myself, but nonetheless. Oops. Yeah, okay. Currently, we've got, I think as of I did this, some of these details, we have 19 characters created. I think I've added probably 4 more since I've done this. So we've got about 23 characters. I would imagine, I would love to see this get to 50 to 100. And so speaking of characters, in this game, you can create as many as you want. That's the question. Sean, how many characters can I create? As many as you want. How many you can use at any given time is 1 in a session. You can have 2 in the game. Okay. Will that change? Everything's subject to change. Let's be flexible and adaptable here, people. So, yeah. And I'm keeping track of these in kind of a player character database, so to speak. The reason for that is a few things. One, I know whose level is what, and the players can. So they can look at the roster and see whose characters have what. They can actually filter it. So I have a tool that can do that. And I'll kind of show maybe that and bring it up. It wasn't part of the plan, but nonetheless. I also want to keep track of like what characters have explored what. Now, you may know that, but some of the other characters do not. Backing up just a second, another part of West Marches is that all the players share the player characters, all the world knowledge, everything that occurs is pretty much public record. Nothing's meant to be hidden. There isn't really any plotting and scheming against other player characters. Essentially, the mentality is that if you're going out to explore, you're coming back and you're documenting that somewhere. In Ben's game, I think he said he had a table in the game world in a tavern where those players would come back and they would like etch into the table parts of the map in certain places that they've been. So that is also intricate. And having said that, I can document what characters have gone where, so that when people want to go back to that place and explore, they can see who might have already been there and help, and they can describe what they've seen and what they've encountered and things of that nature. So it's kind of a potentially continuous log of the things the characters have done. Now, you could obviously keep track of that yourself. You know, I would think you would do that anyway, but nonetheless. So 19 characters and growing, good stuff. Everything's moving along rather well. That's across approximately 36 interested players. So this may like ebb and flow as well. There may be an interested party right now, but they can never get to the table. And you know what? That's okay. Perfectly fine. That's to be expected. I would be shocked if I had a player that wanted to play every session that was out there and could make every single session that is scheduled. And frankly, there may be one person that does that. And it's usually around scheduling, right? So schedules may attract some of the similar players together, but it is really to accommodate many different players playing together at different times and getting to know each other and having fun. That's it. So, all right, so let's get into some of the nitty-gritty details of Session 0. I used CATS, which is concept, aim, tone, and subject matter, to kind of go through those details. Let's see. So, all right. So the concept. So concept, West Marches style campaign is going to be used in the Shadowdark RPG. You will be a player character from a small village that finds village life boring and mundane. Nothing is going on in the village. Boring. Zero to explore. And guess what the name of the village is? If you guessed the village, that's right. Maybe a little boring, but that's the point. I actually named the village, and then I thought, but if I give the village a name, then there's going to be a reason why it's named that. And then there's going to be people that talk about the village and some of the things that occur in it. The village. Boring. Intentional. So, so Kevin kind of nailed it. Kevin says the village people. Yeah. Well, didn't see that one, did I? No. That's all right, though. I'm good. I'm good with it. Oh, man. All right. So let's see. Continue on. You're driven to explore the lands out in the distance. I got to find a good spot for this thing. Here we go. You're driven to explore lands out in the distance, discover old ruins, encounter strange and dangerous creatures, and be rewarded with treasure. Okay, doing this will require your character to adventure with associates from your village with similar goals. Okay, but the group composition and schedule will change from session to session. The aim of this campaign and play for your characters. So I broke this down into characters and players. So the aim for the characters, this one's going to come as a shock, survive. Survive dangerous situations, defend against monsters or malicious people, find treasure and magic, discover interesting landmarks and places, learn about the world in which your character lives. And I'll go into a little bit more detail in just a second about that. For players, the aim is to learn how to play or experience Shadowdark RPG, organize and or participate in game sessions, share your sessions, achievements, failures with everyone in some way, shape, or form. And I don't expect everybody to kind of sit down and jot out a journal every time they play and put it out in the public newspaper. I will do probably most of the documenting myself because I probably need to anyways. Let's see. Meet new players, i.e. the players, the people that are the players of the village. Or the village people players. I'm never going to live this down now. And then lastly, have fun. Okay. Tone. Sometimes things don't align well when tone is not fully baked or understood amongst players, right? Somebody thinks this is this type of game. Some others will think it's that type of game. And therefore kind of loses itself over time. So the tone of this is the trade dress for the game will rely heavily on black and white pencil art. And I have to say, kudos to everybody who's made a player character to this point. Every single character sketch I've received has been black and white pencil type art. Whether they've had it commissioned, they've found it online, or what have you, used AI to come up with a character sketch of some kind. I don't think I've had a single one that's been in color. So that's pretty amazing to me with this many characters that have been submitted so far. It will be a human-only campaign. Okay, so in Shadowdark, the races, species are called ancestries. They do have elven, goblin, and a few others, halfling. We're going to go with straight human. Now, I have molded over to think that some of those other ancestries may come into play as the party discovers them. We will see. I know that there are some people with pretty strong opinions on whether it should have other ancestries involved. But for the tone of this game, being in a village, and this will make more sense once you understand the premise of the world, I think. You'll probably be a little bit okay, a little more okay. But I don't think I've had a lot of people complain about that yet, which is good. Another thing, or another piece of the tone is sincere. Play sincere, but not serious. So let me explain that. I don't remember who put that out there. I think it was somebody that was maybe a modern day philosophy person. But what this kind of gets at is there's the serious player. And the serious player, I think many of us take gaming seriously, but I think it's different than being serious, right? If you're serious, you've all been in those meetings with the serious person. They can be a little more intense than some of us care for, but we all want to have fun and take the game serious. So it's, when I say sincere and not serious, it's, being respectful of folks that are there. It's not a night at the Improv, But because it's not serious, there's a bit of levity, okay, that goes on. There's a sense of danger when your characters are at 1 hit point or at 0 and on the verge of death, and things of that nature. So I think we'll all understand what that looks like as we play. It's going to be fun. And sometimes, tone, well, we want to have fun. Fun is relative. And sometimes somebody's fun is this and somebody's fun is that. So we have to kind of find the happy medium where we can all enjoy, which is really the commonality is the love for role-playing games and playing a character and exploring. And that's where it kind of comes together. Like I said, like I have this in my notes. So the latter, not serious, is not carte blanche to someone wanting to try out their comedy stand-up routine every session. Okay, unless maybe their character is like that, in which case, mileage may vary. Angela says, I like the differentiation between serious and sincere. I want humor, but I want the emotion to be real and not jokey. Right. That's exactly right. And I think by framing it up that way, it helps understand the difference between a night at the Improv and being super serious. We can have a happy medium, and that's kind of where it's at for me. All right. Another thing, running away or circumventing danger is always an option. Okay. Sometimes we get in these modes of play where it's like, yep, okay, everything's going to be balanced, and therefore we have a really strong chance that we can take over the challenge that's in front of us, whether it's a high-level monster or a very dangerous situation, what have you. Running and fleeing is an option. It kind of inhabits that old school where it's like, yes, first level, you could come across a dragon. In some games, they will like, what are you talking about? Why is there a dragon and we're only first level? Well, if you're going into the dragon's lair and you find out the dragon is there and you are first level, you will probably want to leave that lair or be very, very, very careful not to wake the dragon, and then you might be fine. Okay? Character death will certainly occur. I don't see this as a high mortality or high lethality type of campaign, but it could be. I don't anticipate TPKs, but you never know. Sometimes it can be a mixed bag. I will be rolling everything out in the open. So I'll probably we'll get into that in just a second. We're going to be using Discord for a lot of audio and video. We have a Discord bot that we can use for die rolling. I'm going to roll my rolls either with a camera on my dice rollers right here, right, physical dice, or I'm going to roll them through Discord so everybody can see them. But they will be viewed. Let the dice fall where they may, okay? But I also don't want it to be so perilous that the characters become throwaway characters. So I'll just make up another one. It's the DCC funnel. Put the big old death stamp on the 4 that I'm running. No big deal. I'll go to Purple Sorcerer Games and, hit the generate 4 0-level characters one more time and print them out. No big deal. I don't want that type of campaign. Plus, it also leads to what some of us refer to as turtling, which means the characters die so often, it's so lethal. Every turn is something dangerous to the point where you just don't want to do anything because you're going to die if you take one step forward. So we don't want that to happen either, okay? So in short, I'll sum it up. Be cautious. Use your brain and others' brains, the party and the player, other players. But don't use other players' brains or other characters' brains like in the Mind Flayer type way. All right. So realism. So going into still maintaining on the tone here, because I think this is to me one of the most important is like the tone piece. It's just nailing that down. Realism, pulp, Crouching Dragon, Hidden Liger, and Marvel's Avengers, right? get the kind of span of what this looks like. Like, will my character be able to do, heroic deeds and awesome feats of fancy? And yes, to some degree, but that's also relative in what that looks like, right? There's the Marvel Avenger movies, and then there might be something more akin to King Arthur's court and the Knights of the Round Table and what that looked like. This is action. I will say this: action in fantasy RPG is good. Good action, great. Something akin to what you would see in Lord of the Rings, movies, novels, fantasy TV shows, movies. Action in Marvel superheroes or Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, not so much, right? You're not going to be just flying across the screen in whimsical ways and clashing swords and as they fly 50 feet across the scene. Unless, of course, there's the magic components in your 5th level and things start getting a little kooky and crazy and it's mystical and magical and wondrous. Possibly. But in a sense, it's basically being down street level, right? If you're talking superhero games, street level, battling it out. Grim and perilous might be overused. Grim and dark might be a little overused. But it is pretty much adventurers going out and seeking and exploring the land that hasn't been explored for a long time. And I'll get to that in just a second. So some of the sources of inspiration I mentioned, but I want to go through some of these. Lord of the Rings I already mentioned. The Green Knight is one. Lady Hawk, Excalibur, Black Death, if you've seen that movie with Sean Bean, I think is in that. Willow is also one of those. Chronicles of Narnia is getting there a little bit. The Seventh Voyage of Sinbad are just some of the... There's plenty and tons of other ones, but those were just ones that hit me in the face. Game of Thrones, although I would say that this campaign is not going to be full of intrigue, but as far as like adventuring and battling other knights and creatures and things of that nature, and the level of magic, that's really where it's going to be. Any questions so far? I've kind of blathered a little while. I'm going to take it just a second. I'm going to take a drink of my water. There's going to be more to come, but any questions up of what I've spoken of so far? Doesn't sound like it. All right. So that leads me to the last part of CATS, which is subject matter. So subject matter is kind of the rated R, NC-17 disclaimer, what's going to be some of the, of course, the subject matter contained in the game. A couple of the things that I've listed, but I've certainly seen listings of like 9 to 12. So this is not all inclusive, but just some of the highlights. Character death, violence, strong language. Strong language, I mean, in gameplay, I'm susceptible to dropping an F-bomb, but it's going to be far from, the longshoreman, at the truck stop. It's not that kind of strong language. But nonetheless, if it's something that makes you uncomfortable, I mean, it's not I don't see this game being something I would want to run for anybody under 18 for quite a few reasons. But nonetheless, of course, I'm not looking at, there's not going to be anything sexual involved. I don't see that occurring. Sexual assault is definitely going to be ruled out. We'll be doing maybe some lines and veils in the game. But I think many of the go-to lines and veils are going to be pretty obvious. And I'm not an edgelord, game master, and I don't see Shadowdark as being part of that. Now, I do see things maybe getting a little, borderline grotesque. There's arachnophobia, maybe some of those details, which can certainly make people nervous. But I assure you, if you've played a fantasy role-playing game with individuals that you would say are not complete edgelords, I think you'll be okay. But I'm only speaking that from my perspective. All right. Moving on. All right. So the how. How are we going to do all this? We're going to use Discord for a majority of coordination, scheduling, bantering. So if you aren't on our Discord server, you got to join. Most of you that I know are here already are. Otherwise, you probably wouldn't even know this is happening. We're going to use audio and video for Discord. We're going to use the breakout rooms that are set up for the different events, and we'll just go in there. Now, if we have a player that's having a hard time with Discord and it just doesn't work for them, I have a Zoom account. I'm more than happy to fire up Zoom. I'm not using a VTT. That has been, if I do, it will be a last kind of a last ditch effort. I still may fire up a VTT. If I do, it's probably going to be Owlbear, only because I don't look. I'm a big Foundry fan, but I'm trying to be very self-conscious of, hey, I need to go and log in and create an account here. And hey, I need to go in and log in an account here. So I need to use this for that for this, and a little of those for everything else. So I'm just wanting to get online and just play. I don't, also with those things, it can be like, well, I don't have my character in there and it's not, the buttons aren't working. And then you're an hour in before things get going. And that's also something very top of mind, because we're going to have anywhere from 2 to 3, 4 hours, maybe tops per session to get things going. And people want to get to the nitty gritty and play. Okay. The only reason I would use a VTT is for my own personal reason. Like maybe it's got some reference tables on it. I could pull it up. I may use it just to share my screen as well. That way I can just use it and just show what's on my screen. I can have the maps up and they're loaded, things of that nature. Okay. That's probably going to be the smoothest and the quickest, because some people are, it's hard to picture theater of the mind in their brain all the time. So narratively, they're great until maybe something, like a combat and positioning. Even though I don't see that as becoming, it's not a tactical game. Shadowdark is not. There is still some, hey, you move. But it's very much picture it in your mind. Are we all on the same page? Yes. But some people are like, I need to know where that guy is. And you say they're to my left, but like this is left to them all the way back to here. And then they start thinking, well, I'm defending against that. But so how did they come up and hit me, right? There's nuance. So, all right. I'm going to have vanilla Coke as Joe comments on my water because it's late, buddy. I was tempted. I've already had one today. That's another reason. All right, moving on. For those not in the know, I usually drink vanilla Coke. Nectar of the gods. So this is what it is in a nutshell. How are we going to do, how do we do this? You want to play. You got to create a PC. You got to choose a destination. You got to select a date to play. You got to join others. And then we play. Some of these things, order-wise, don't fall sequential. So you could literally come in, want to play a game. Somebody's already chosen the destination. They've already chosen the date. And then you just join that group, knowing those two things. You could select the date and then determine where you want to go. Or you can determine where you want to go, then try to select the date. It's okay. No wrong answers. There is an organizer that I'm trying to kind of put in. Well, even back up. I'll back up just a second. So, Sean, when you say destination, where do I find that? What does that mean? You're talking. You're going to talk, and I need a little bit more. So I'm using Notion. It's an online tool that I use. It's sometimes equivalent to like OneNote. You don't need to know much about Notion actually at all. When I put the documentation in my notes in Notion, I share those out to the web and people can access those. So things that can be accessed is, like I mentioned, the character roster, the player listing, as well in the player listing, their preferred name and their Discord handle. That way, if you're like, hey, look at these characters. Ooh, that person's like 3rd level now. I wonder if we can get them to come along with us on this expedition. You'll know what player character that character belongs to. Great, but if you don't know their Discord handle, that makes it even more difficult. So those dots are all connected, and you can just hit them up on Discord and say, hey, Sean, you have a cleric that is 4th level. Could you come with us on this expedition? Right? That's on there. Also, the points of interest are going to be on there as well. I call it the cork board. So you're going to hear rumors of things going on and places that people come across when they explore, and those will be posted, and then you can just choose. And then if it's chosen or in progress or explored and who explored it, those things will kind of like note cards move across in different statuses that people can see at all times. And if you don't like the little status view, you could actually change it to table view and just look at it from a table perspective. Yes, and you don't have to do really anything with Notion. You can just look at it and then talk about it on the Discord. All right. So let's get into this. The village. I had a name for the village. Like I said at the beginning of this video, it's just known as the village. That's it. It's all. Nothing there. That's where you come from. 20 people. It's probably got, maybe 100 people, 200 people, 1,000 people. I don't know. Too many, too few to count. Too many. You've just grown up there. It's boring. You could stay there and become a blacksmith. You could become a farmer. You could become, someone who grows, you do farmer, grows crops and, harvest when the seasons are in, the right time. You might become a seamstress or, I don't know, work at the inn. Boring. There's a better life out there. If you remember it as a kid, as a child, you explored out, past the confines of the village proper, went into the little countryside, and you found some old ruins that had been long abandoned, but it was only a single building, and it, had a underground little tunnel, came into a concrete kind of bunker, stone. The walls above had all crumbled, but it was fun. You were young. So there's got to be something else out there. Other things. Some of the village elders have mentioned tales of old that have intrigued you. But going into the world of Beaslandia, some of the things that are going to be made up, original content, some of it will be made up. Did I just say original content and made up in the same sentence? I did, didn't I? But it also come from third parties. Some will be, I don't know, might become familiar if you've ever gone through a particular published module in the past. It's like, wait a minute, this seems vaguely familiar. And I think that's not such a bad thing. But overall, you've lived in a village, a sheltered life. It's peaceful, uneventful. Nothing happens. But a long, long time ago, hundreds, if not even maybe thousands of years ago, something had occurred in the land, across the continent. It's some type of plague of some kind, a blight. Nobody really knows, but it was disastrous. And many people fled, and they fled to this area of the world. And this was back when giants walked the land and actually helped cordon off a section of this land by a huge, huge, huge wall. But nobody ventures out past the wall. Only the foolish. And there is a couple. you know that there's that one individual that comes from far. He looks older, worn, weather-beaten, wrinkles, wearing strange clothing. It comes in every few months into the village and talks about things beyond the wall. Many people think he's just a foolish individual, a nomad of some kind. Even some calling him mad. But anyways, they don't go too far. There's plenty of land around to be farmed. There's plenty of animals and things to be raised. Everything's fine in the village. But sometimes you actually think, as a inhabitant of the village, and through your younger years, you're wondering if the tales of Beyond the Wall are just, if they're just meant to keep you at the village, meant to keep you here. Your family, your friends, they don't want you to leave. Everything's here. Why would you go out and face danger? But you even wonder if what they say about a plague or a blight even existed beyond the wall. It's hard to say. So they secluded themselves, and the wall was built, and the giants had disappeared. Throughout time, there's tales that are told when you're a child about magic and the wonders of the outside world. And it's things that are kind of like what we would call fairy tales, folklore. But it does have you interested in what may be out there. Some actually have, the talents of magic, born with those traits and understanding, and very book smart. And the world does have magic in it. Many people have encountered that, but some of the items beyond are even more powerful than some of the individuals that reside in the village and actually know magic, to the extent of some of the player characters. So magic, it's a low magic world, I would say, or at least that's what you think is the case. But you can't have too low of a magic world if you have wizards in player character parties. So here's a little bit of the map. Here's where you're located. I'll get you a little bit more detail on this, and I'll put it up for everybody to reference. Maybe a little bit hard to read on this video, but essentially there's going to be 6 mile hexes. Going to nail down some of the distances, but essentially the village has been kind of put down in a little bit of a nook of the overall continent. And frankly, you might not have a lot of maps and references to the bigger world. And even then, if you do, who knows if they're completely accurate. But again, there are already some missions, some interesting things to investigate beyond the wall, and even on this side of the wall. Maybe it's just a little bit further than most people explore on the safe side of the wall. But is that of signs of things to come? So this map, just for giving credit where credit's due, this is from Mad Vandal's map pack by Joseph Vandal. So that's where the overall region came from. So there you go. I'll have links down to some of the things that I'll be using down below for people if they want to check it out. If you're a player character, you don't need any of that. Or if you're a player in the game. All right, let's get into some other things about the game itself. So I'm starting to put things together, documents on play, what that looks like. So when you schedule, show up on time, be courteous. If you can't show up on time or something's going to run late or you have to bail at the last minute, let somebody know. in the organization component of mustering, I have a slot of for when people RSVP for a session as the organizer. As the organizer, it's kind of their, I guess, they're taking the initiative to make sure that, hey, I want to play on this day. I'm going to try to get some players, and then we're going to all come together and go in a particular direction and explore. So I figured an organizer would help kind of move that. As a little bit of an incentive, also the organizer would be what I would consider the caller. So back in the OSR days, you'd have a particular individual that would, I wouldn't say make the decisions of everybody, but they were the one that kind of conveyed the intent of the party to the game master or dungeon master. Same thing with this campaign. However, the organizer is not the dictator, okay? Players will be able to do what they want. Most of the times, the organizer is really going to come into play if there's a discussion on, well, 2 people want to go this way, 2 people want to go that way. Which way do you go? Now, it could very well end up splitting the party. But if for some reason there needs to be something adjudicated amongst the players, the organizer can help maybe negotiate some of that within the group, okay? So when I, as the game master, say, okay, you guys have been talking about this for a little while, what's it going to be? The organizer or kind of the leader of the expedition will come up with what the deal is. And I think with the organizer, because they kind of take the default leader of the expedition, they don't have to be, right? They can muster everybody, they can get the group together, but maybe their player character just isn't that type, right? They're not the leader type that's going to push things. But in a sense, you know, it was their idea to want to go off in one particular distance, whether it was the player character's idea or the player. It's kind of sharing dual responsibilities there. So having said that, some of the things I'm putting together are some house rules that also play a little bit from the standard mechanics. So standard Shadowdark, however, anything denoted with the old parentheses with an H in it is going to be a tweak to the rules in the game. And one of those tweaks is going to be dark dice mode. So dark dice mode is like a single page kind of tweaks to it. It's not going to turn things too much on its head. At least I don't think it should. It may speed up things. So one of the things is like initiative. In combat, in dark dice mode, I don't think I incorporated this piece of it, but the initiative was the players get to go first regardless. There's no rolls. They just get to go. As long as they're not ambushed or surprised, the players go first. The nice thing about that, no initiative rolls. There's no everybody roll. Oh, hold on a second. Oh, we got to wait for Jack to come back. It's already done. But I don't think I incorporated that specific component. But if you ever see any of the H's in some of the documentation, it's a deviation from standard, if you will. Yeah. I think the biggest one was instead of luck dice, there's dark dice. And the dark dice you get, and you can modify specific rolls, okay, and use them appropriately. But I'm not going to get into all the details of the house rules. I've got a document for it. If you memorize them, great. If you don't, it's okay. Trust me, a lot of us will just learn as we go, all right? So one of these, this is just an example. So in the standard rules, if you do not have the spell casting talent, you can't cast spells. The spell casting talent typically falls to wizards and clerics. Using dark dice mode, I'm allowing all classes can cast spells as long as they are from items or scrolls. That's the caveat. They have to be from an item or scroll. Now, having said that, because they're not native talents, they don't have the magic talent, spellcasting talent. If a non-caster fails by 5 on a spellcasting roll, for their DC, then it's considered a critical failure. So in Shadowdark, there is critical failures and spell mishaps. So on a critical failure, the spell backfires, and then the GM decides the details. So, sure, you can go ahead and cast that magic. Somebody that doesn't deal with magic very often. We'll see what happens. All right. I went through a lot of things. Not into a lot of weeds, but I'm opening it up to questions at this point because we're right about at the hour. I didn't want to take too much time, but I'm here to answer questions as long as you are. Okay. So I will let you. Any questions so far? What did I not cover? Yes, I have to get people a map. You will have that, at least parts of it. Some of the things that you're going to go and explore, I will get those going. Our first session is next week. Thursday, I believe, is the very first session. And there'll be some other things that I'll probably mention too. I'll put this out there for everybody. So I have a website, I have a domain, we're on Twitter and on Instagram. Follow us everywhere. Most of the things I will probably put as things progress, like journal entries and things of that nature, will probably be on the Beaslandia website. I will put those things out there, put them out as updates. I will cross-post them to Discord and in a channel where everybody can reference them and things of that nature. Some of the links that I have for scheduling or finding the cork board and the points of interest that you can explore, I will have URL-friendly links to those. Because right now, they're posted in the Discord, but you can't remember any of them. So if you go to beaslandia.com/scheduling, it'll take you to where you can schedule things on the Discord. If you need to look up players, it'll be Beaslandia /docs/players. Docs/scheduling. Docs. You get the picture. Anyways, back to questions. Whew. Adrian, really looking forward to this. I'll have to catch the VOD, though. I have family stuff right now. No problem. Thanks, Adrian. Good to see you. Appreciate it. Angela, what's the limit of people per session? That is a good question. So 6. 6 is the max per session. And the reason I wanted 6 was because if 2 people drop, I can still run to a minimum of, I think, 3 or 4. That's the reason. If I go too low, 1 person drops, it's going to kind of fizzle the schedule. So I would much rather have the 6. And then if 1 or 2 drop, which I think is going to be, I don't know if it'll be common, but it'll happen. We can still roll. It won't be that big a deal. It might be a big deal to the party, but we'll get through it. Might change the dynamics and how things are approached. I also think some will be like, I don't think we can go there with anything less than 4. That may be true. That may be a pickle. We'll cross that bridge when we come to it. But good question. Any other questions? I mean, does it cost to play? No, it does not. I will say this, though. For patrons that are part of my Patreon, I'm going to, I think I have it in the rules where, like at a certain level, at that level, you will get a free die roll every session. If you're a patron at this level or above, 1 free die roll on anything during a session. I think the level down from that is going to be like I think it's a modifier, like a +2 to any roll once per session. Okay. That's what that's going to be. Just a little something, nothing too crazy, but just to show an appreciation for those that are patrons. If you're a patron, you can become a patron. You can become a patron of my Patreon. If you'd like, there's a link down below I'll put. You do not have to pay to be a member. I had started putting out some updates. I also have a newsletter. So it's going to be might be a little overwhelming with amount of information that I'm putting out in different avenues, but I want to make sure that you're getting what you need and staying engaged and having fun. And I haven't thought how I should kind of angle those things so that you're not getting the same five updates on every single outlet. Kevin, nope, well laid out, well thought out through, super stoked. And a lot of this is going to come through play. It's just going to be fun. You get down, play, and start rolling with it, and it'll all come together. Experience points are going to be kind of almost mimicked after some of the free league stuff. So much more, did you accomplish this? Did you do this? Some of the examples are, hey, Tam, is that Seamus? Nope, letting down an animal. XP is going to be more of a checklist type, but it'll also take into consideration like gold and monsters to some degree. The one thing I don't want to have happen, it's like, oh, in order to get experience points, you have to kill monsters. Therefore, we need to kill monsters to level up. That's not, it drives a certain incentive, right? Which can be not always the greatest. Like if I tell you sometimes you need to run, but that'll forfeit XP, that comes in conflict. So I'm going to make it so you can still run, still get XP. So some of the things are, did you explore something new? Because sometimes you'll go somewhere that's not new. And it could be new for certain player characters. Did you kill a monster or a monster? What else is there? Did you do something heroic? Did you save another player character? And something heroic and saving another player character could be one of the same. And then I'm also going to have a anonymous, player character of the session that I think the whole group can kind of vote on and say, you know what, I'm going to vote for Kevin because I liked what he did in his role playing, or he did this one thing really well, so I'm going to vote for him. And then they'll get a little smidgen as well. Shamat says, you mentioned session lengths of about 2 to 4 hours. Does this consider travel time, or am I asking too much about the potential interest in destination? Very good question. Session specific. So the journey is the big one. And I didn't go into a ton of details about that in this, and I should, because I think that's a really big component of all of this, is how much journey versus the destination. I'm leaning more destination centric in this. I'm still trying to figure out a table that the party would roll on returning back to the village. I may also have a table going to the destination. So that may just be bookends on the session. A couple reasons. I don't want things to be bogged down in the journey, which can happen. There's probably going to be some frustration, just a guess, that if you want to go and explore the catacombs and you're jazzed up to get there and explore the catacombs, and Sean ties you up with random encounters for 4 hours, and you never get to the catacombs. So I want the party to get there, but I also don't want you to get there without kind of with the results of the journey. In other words, maybe the journey went really well. What does that mean? So if you were to go through a journey, ran into a random encounter, and you settled that, what would be the end result? Or what are the possible results? You could be damaged, you could lose equipment, you could die. I don't want to do that especially during a journey on a roll necessarily. You could have some serious injuries that may actually affect, a limb. Maybe you lose a limb. But having said that, if you run into a random encounter, and maybe all that happens and you defeat it, what are the rewards? Well, you come, maybe that thing you came across had gold or treasure. So it's not meant to just be bad. But what's the weather like? How is it to travel there? How quickly did you get there? Some of those details, again, with the journey, I want to have it affect the session and the play without getting bogged down and actually taking up 4 hours. Hopefully that makes sense. I also want that to take part in going back. So there's a part of like Forbidden Lands has a good model where if you go through a hex and it hasn't been explored, you got to roll a random encounter. This is what happens. In Shadowdark, the rule is I can't remember what it's called, the leader, the guide, I can't remember. There's a term, rolls, and if they fail the roll, you end up in a random hex. In Forbidden Lands, if you go through a hex you've already explored, there is no roll. You just go right through it. So typically in Forbidden Lands, if you're going through a hex you have not explored and you roll, it's to see if you've come across anything specific. I also want things to be discovered as you journey, but I also don't want it to sidetrack. So if you're going to the catacombs and, oh, by the way, off in the distance, you see this tower and you're like, oh, tower, let's go that way. Well, that's not necessarily something Sean had prepped because you said you were going to the catacombs. But now at least you know the tower is there on the way to the catacombs. Now that gets put down. Now it's carved into the table, put on the journal, and other people can go, what? They've discovered a tower over there. We should go check that out. Does that help, Shambot? See you, Kevin. Angela, you want us to be able to get to to the freaking monkey, but still have the journey matter. Exactly. Yes. That's it. Exactly it. That's exactly it. Yes. Look at this. I got little thingies here. I got just mail call today. I got some cursed scroll issues. Got the DM screen because when you're playing virtual, why not? A couple other things, all good stuff. It's all going to be fun. I'm looking forward to playing with each and every one of you. Anybody can play. Now, who can play? Can anybody play? As of now, I was thinking like, well, maybe I should just, right now it's kind of confined to the Discord and people that, tune into the stream every Saturday that actually know about it. I'm not opposed to opening this thing up wide open. I just also want to be cautious of, well, if you get too many players, too many sessions, nobody can schedule, it becomes an issue. That's, I can't run every day of the week. And I want to make sure people can get in and play when they want to, or at least enough to be still engaged with what's going on in the world and their player characters. So I think some are going to be pretty consistent. Some may not so much. I actually thought, well, maybe just keep it to referrals. You got to be referred. Who referred you? Who kind of put their stamp of approval on you, being a positive force in the tabletop RPG hobby? Great. Let's get you in there. I think patrons will probably be a no-brainer. Although, again, I don't want that to be the thing. It's not the point. But, it may be a thing, right? Get it started, then take it slow. Yeah, we got to get this thing baked. I think after this month, I'll be able to determine how bonkers it'll be. And I say bonkers as in I've got to come up, keep you guys engaged enough, put enough stuff out there, put enough time to meet with you so you guys can set up sessions. And then I've got to document all that, right? So people know. I haven't decided whether I want to do maybe I just do a podcast and, people could subscribe to it and then they can just, okay. Maybe I create a fictional character, do some voiceover work, put it out in audio and people can just subscribe and they can listen to it and wait, what? Huh? And maybe it's 5 minutes, maybe it's 10 minutes. I would imagine me hitting record and just speaking through it might be very quick and easy versus typing some more. Although my nights sometimes with the laptop on my lap may just do the trick. So if you have any questions, I will have a Q&A, or I would probably put a question channel in the Discord. Questions for the GM. The scheduling one's getting buried with a bunch of stuff. I meant to keep that clean, but then it affected the reaction. So I just got to get the permissions right on the scheduling channel so that when you go to the scheduling channel, all you see is just the available sessions. Right now, I got them pinned, but if you wanted to go there, you're not going to see them unless you scroll up all the way up to the beginning because people have started talking in there. It's not any fault of anybody's. I didn't stipulate or put the big ban hammer down, if you will, but I just want clean channel, session events, window frames. That's window frames. Session time windows. Yeah. All right. We're a little over an hour. Thank you so much. I really appreciate each and every one of you. I look forward to gaming with each and every one of you, either for the first time or again. Enjoy the rest of your day, evening, whatever time it is that you view this. See you at the table.